I look back on my press emails from the early days, and I could see my enthusiasm pretty much from day one, really believing that this is something that if you use it, it will change you. And, I'm not somebody who wakes up in the morning and was like, yeah, enterprise software, how exciting. It's not that drives you. But what you see in Monday that I had never seen anywhere else is the real life positive impact and improvement that a software can bring to your world.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step.
Just let go.
We have Leah Walters on the show today. She is a communications connoisseur. Leah shares a why not now moment where she had 3 very different opportunities in front of her. And she talks through how she made the decision in choosing which one she was going to pursue. She ended up taking the road that was less safe. It was less known, but she talks through what happened after. And for anyone who is trying to make a decision right now, especially about their career, this is invaluable advice. The road Leah said yes to was with Monday.com. She is now the head of communications at Monday.com, but she said yes at a stage when the company was at its infancy. She was the 30th employee. They now have more than 800, and she's helped this company soar in a way that's extremely unique. In this episode, Leah and I discuss culture, inside culture, outside culture. We talk through motherhood. We talk through her experience as she was becoming a mom and also having to navigate some pretty intense times with the growth of Monday. It's not easy to take software and enable it to spark joy in people's days. But Monday has nailed it, and it's because of the team. It's because of the culture. It's because of the people. Very few people have had a ride like Leah has in business, starting, with a company as a startup and taking it to a multi-billion-dollar valuation. Without further ado, here is Leah Walters. Leah, welcome to the Why Not Now show. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Let's hop in. Can you tell me about a time when you had a big decision to make and you had to ask yourself, why not now? We'll dissect that minute, that day, that hour, the season, and really kind of understand how you went from idea to action.
Absolutely. So shortly after my husband and I got married, we decided to move to Tel Aviv for his job. We were living in New York. We had been there for about 5 years and decided that it was time for a new adventure. And that wasn't the why not now moment. So we arrive in Tel Aviv, and my husband went immediately and started his role. And I stayed in a consulting capacity for the firm that I was with in New York. And I remember very clearly the first day that he left to go to work, I had this identity crisis of who am I and what are we doing here? And what is my purpose in all of this? And how am I really going to make the most of this experience? And immediately started applying for all kinds of jobs. And in the back of my mind, being in Tel Aviv in Israel, it's known as the startup nation. I thought it was a good time to test out the waters in tech. I had zero experience with startups or anything like that, but it seemed like really the place to be in this environment. So I applied for jobs at startups. I actually applied for jobs in the news, big startups, small startups. And the why not now moment really happened in deciding where I was going to work. And it came down to 3 totally different offers for me. One was from a large public company that still had sort of the startup persona. One was actually to be a broadcast news anchor at the English news station there. And the third was from a very small, lesser known, about 30-person startup at the time. And ultimately, that's what I chose. And it completely changed the trajectory of my life and identity and everything that followed from there.
Oh, what an incredible, well, first of all, the diversity of those 3 opportunities and paths. And then I really loved what you mentioned about the identity crisis situation, where I think sometimes we just take stock and we audit, okay, where am I? What am I doing? And you literally were in a very new environment. So we're going to fast forward because you were employee 30, right? Now you have over 800. What a ride. So we definitely want to hop into that. But before we do, how did you decide between those 3 options? I mean, we're talking about TV, news, journalism to tech startup. And, how do you make your decisions in that situation?
It's so I think, typical of these challenging and sort of interesting life moments where there's pros and cons to everything. So, the larger company offered me stability and a chance to have sort of a set schedule and to kind of get my hands dirty slowly, which was appealing at the time. We were coming from an extremely busy New York life and newly married, and we really wanted to spend time together. So the idea of having a less demanding career at the time had some appeal, but it wasn't really in my DNA to be that way. The news opportunity was really a pipe dream of mine. It felt fun and exciting and different, but it completely sacrificed any sense of a schedule in life, which really, looking at this opportunity and being in Tel Aviv with my new husband, we wanted to spend time together and to be able to travel and enjoy life. And when you are, sort of subject to breaking news, you don't have that luxury. And so ultimately what pulled me to the third option was both a career growth opportunity because it was really a chance to build something. And it was in my interview process, the quality of the people that worked there, not necessarily from a professional capacity, but you could just tell they were good people with their hearts in the right place. And that's what was most motivational to me.
Oh, and I mean, I can attest, and so can the listeners, because we've had one of the co-founders, Iran, on the show before, but that's interesting. I'm like taking notes here as I'm listening to you. So you had the safe, kind of less demanding option, but great. And there was the pipe dream, but very out of your control with schedule, right? You're going to be at the mercy of breaking news. And then this chance to build something, which I just love. And so you went with it. And I mean, I can't even imagine what your ride has been like, because let's break this down timeline. What year was this that you said yes?
2016.
We're not even, yeah. So that's so recent, 2016. I'd love if you could just kind of share the movie trailer version of what happened from then to now. Personally and professionally, you're like,
that's the right way of saying it. It is, it's very much sort of the tech pipe dream. And I wish I could say it was, super strategic and we believed in the company and invested in it wasn't that. It was really good people doing something interesting. And it just so happened to be a rocket ship that took off. So I started, and it was completely foreign to me. The culture of the workspace was foreign. The actual work itself, the kinds of journalists, the communications, everything was new. But I was able to transfer sort of the core skills of what I had worked in previously. So that at least was reassuring. And I have clear memories in the early days of the CEO pulling up a chair behind my desk, just saying like, I'm just going to watch. Like, I'm here to learn. And it's, I want to just, see what this whole world is all about. And it was so foreign to me. I was like, well, what do you want? What do you want me to be doing? He's like, no, you're the expert. You do what you think is the best. And, in the early days, it was really important that they were setting attainable goals for me. I think they really wanted it to be a confidence building exercise and to show me the impact that you can have really quickly. And so the messages were around, done is better than perfect, which for me, a, North American, academically trained, very sort of formal communications professional was terrifying. When my first they asked me to write a page that would be public facing for the company. So I spend a lot of time and research and I write it out and I bring, a red pen and my printed out document to the CEO to say, okay, can you review it before we publish it? And he said, no, I'll see it when it's live. And I was like, well, I've only been working here for a week. Like, how do you know this is the right thing? And he said, if it's not, we'll change it and we'll learn from that accordingly. So it was a really quick adjustment to learning. And from there, we really built trust in one another and built trust as a team, and very steadily, and I mean, more than steadily, rapidly grew. And my responsibilities were basically anything public facing at the company. So communications and media and brand and anything in between. And I quickly sort of established myself as the person of, if nobody else really knows how to do it, then they can come by and give it to me. And it was incredible because I got to be involved in so many fun and interesting things, but it also distracted me from really building out the kind of communications group and practice that I was brought on to do. So it had a lot of pros and cons that time. And I really immersed myself in the company, but didn't necessarily accomplish my own personal professional goals. And that was on me.
That's really interesting too. And for listeners, because I'm constantly talking about Monday.com, I'm guessing the majority of you are you've got some context here, but I just want to set that stage too, in case you're listening for the first time. And Leah will be so kind to share about the work operating system that my team and I rave about. Leah, would you mind just sharing just a high level, what is Monday.com? Because at the time, it wasn't even that when you joined, right? You rebranded as well.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So the company was then called DePulse, which...
remarkable improvement.
Yeah, from a word that you can pronounce. It's a nice growth stage for sure. But, that also wasn't an easy decision. And that's something we can touch on later if you want. But so, right. So what is Monday? Yeah, exactly like you said, Monday is a work operating system for teams of 2 to thousands to build any kind of work process the way they want. And it's truly an open platform. So you can build and create and integrate and automate and do any kind of work that you could possibly want the way that best suits you and your team.
Love it. And what's interesting, and I really appreciate about the work that you've done with this brand, is getting to know some of your team and having these conversations from behind the scenes, but then also as a consumer and user, you've done a great job of bringing that internal culture out. I feel the warmth. I feel the ease. It's friendly. It's actually fun. And I've used all the platforms and I cannot say that, about all of them, but just the ability to have workflow and organization in a way that's actually aesthetically pleasing and enjoyable. Perceived control is perceived happiness in my world, and organized. So good job, because that's not easy to do.
I appreciate that. And it's something that's really in the magic of Monday, is that the culture that we have and experience every day as a team is also the same culture that emanates through the platform. So as teams around the world across verticals are using the platform, that culture is then created according to the values that we hold most dear. You talk about transparency and ownership, and also that sort of fun, joie de vivre of sorts that it really does come through the platform is something that we're so happy to share and build.
Okay, what's that word? We want to learn it.
The joie de vivre? Oh, it's French. No.
Oh, I thought that. Okay.
No, I meant like just the lighthearted feeling.
Joie de vivre.
Joie de vivre, yeah.
I love that. Okay, that's fun. Okay, so let's go back to the rocket ship. So your first time working in a startup.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can just imagine, if you're listening, 30 employees in 2016, it's 2021, and there's over 800, and you have what? You have business verticals, you have 200 different business verticals, plus probably more now that you service, from the small organizations to the biggest ones in the world. What comes to mind as you think about, when did you realize this was a rocket ship? That you were on one? Was there a moment like a why not now? Just
It's funny. I look back on my press emails from the early days, pitching to sort of the big time journalists saying, I want to introduce myself and the platform. And I could see my enthusiasm pretty much from day one, really believing that this is something that if you use it, it will change you. And, I'm not somebody who wakes up in the morning and was like, yeah, enterprise software, how exciting. It's not that drives you. But what you see in Monday that I had never seen anywhere else is the real life positive impact and improvement that a software can bring to your world. It truly does spark joy and happiness. And in something as, unsexy as enterprise software, that is incredible. And so as we saw the numbers climb and the different use cases pop up and the overwhelmingly positive customer feedback, we understood like we really are onto something here. And so at what point did I think, this is really going to be a giant? Not for a while, but the essence and the magic was there from the beginning.
It was there. It's interesting you use the phrase spark joy. And I always refer to Monday as like being Marie Kondo in my laptop. But she does spark joy too. And it's true. The branding, I mean, we do have a lot of marketers that listen to the show and or business owners. And it's a case study that I think a lot of people could really learn from, not only from a user experience, but the outward facing, like what I think, what I feel when I just see these colors and just see the lightheartedness of software. It doesn't have to be so serious. And the fact that you do open source it, I've used it in some crazy ways, like just I would have never imagined, even personally, Yeah. So, okay. So you ended up coming back to New York, right? So sorry, I keep interrupting your movie trailer. Let's keep writing. Where's the rocket ship now? Let's say you're writing these press releases, you're getting more traction.
Yeah, absolutely. So we kept fundraising. Those are sort of milestones that happen each year. And it was such a sort of humbling experience for me to watch the co-founders in action, because it was never about the money or sort of the awareness that came from it. It was being able to get the platform into more people's hands. And so we didn't look at the fundraise as, oh, wow, we're super successful now. It was a step along the journey to ultimately help people work the way they want. And they are incredible role models in that. It was never about them, infuriatingly so, especially from a communications perspective. I'd love to have their faces on the cover of New York Times, Absolutely not. It's not in their DNA. And so that was a change and something that we built as we grew, is establishing different spokespeople and speaking as a we and as a team. It was never about them, the journey. And yeah, we just sort of steadily progressed along. When did I move back? I guess it was about 2.5 years after being in Tel Aviv. There were two factors. One was my husband's job. He was on a consulting project there, and really there was a strong pressure and expectation for him to return to North America. And ultimately, I was, 7.5 months pregnant when we left with our first son. It was in that time, as much as we absolutely loved our life in Tel Aviv and our potential future there, it felt like a time to be closer to family. And, you talk to Aran, I told him I was pregnant, I think before my brother. I just couldn't keep it in and was so emotional about how it would affect my career and what would change. And I give him all the credit in the world. I was hysterical in the conversation. It was probably a mix of hormones and emotion and, lack of clarity about what was going to happen. But I said to him, this is what's important to me. And the company is important to me and my family is important to me. And he said, you do what's best for you and we will figure it out, whatever it is. Wherever you need to be, however long you need to take, whatever. Like, I have never felt more supported and understood as a employee, or even though, as a human, than in that conversation. And he was absolutely right. They went above and beyond to support me. And I had a really sort of wild ask. I wanted to, from Tel Aviv, go back to Toronto, which is where I'm from originally, to have the baby, take maternity leave here, and then move to New York and start in our office there. And without blinking, he said, okay. And that's what happened.
Amazing. I mean, I could definitely feel that energy from around just in our short exchange for the podcast interview. But one of the things you said too, with the humility, I don't even know if it's humility, but the humanizing a brand without wanting the faces to come, without the faces being super interested in coming forward, is not an easy thing to do. But once again, that internal culture and the way he handled your situation, it exudes through your logo and your content. And so that's very difficult to do. So once again, so you did that. What a scary conversation, because you didn't know what the response was going to be, right? And you did it, and you made the ask. So was there any point where were you willing to, I guess, setting the culture that you were working in, that environment made you comfortable enough to ask?
He is one of the most talented people I've ever met. Not only is he, the best of the best as a developer, he was originally the CTO of the company. He's the co-CEO now, but he has this level of emotional intelligence that is really incredibly admirable. So yeah, I was comfortable to ask, and we're also flexible to figure out what was the best for everybody. And we were able to see, a lot of benefits in me coming to this side of the world. As much as we would miss sort of that personal connection and seeing each other every day, there was a lot of growth for the brand and for the company to be happening here. And we recognize that.
Yeah, you did it. So you get to Toronto. If you're comfortable sharing with it sounds like there's a bit of a story, even when you're in labor. And then you did go back to New York and make some magic with some amazing campaigns. So you're having this baby, this company's taken off, and you were willing to be flexible to figure it out. So was your team. So take us to this situation that I've heard a little bit about.
So we moved. We were in Toronto, which I hadn't lived in many years, but it was important to me really to be close to family at this time. It was the first baby for everybody, and I wanted that support from them, and we sure needed it. So it was a good decision. But I was a one-woman show. It was not. I hadn't scaled a team, and I really, to my detriment, held a lot myself. And transitioning out and sort of recognizing that I was going to be out for a few months, more than a few months, was really daunting. And I started looking for a replacement, and we were interviewing and hiring, and it was really hard to find that person because it's such a close role to both of them, to Roy and Aran, the co-founders. Finding that person who both had kind of the relevant skills, but also the personality to do it, was a challenge. And we ultimately found somebody who had great professional skills and came in, and we didn't have much time to overlap in person, which in hindsight was a mistake. It's a difficult transition to make, is coming into this sort of area that I have built and without the support, but she did it. And ultimately it ended up not working out. But the irony of it is that, and I think what you're referring to, is it ended up not working out literally the day that I was in labor. And what happened was she made a decision that she didn't talk to me about, that the co-founders were made aware of, that they felt was sort of going behind my back and what we had agreed on and built. And the trust felt broken in that moment. And they decided they couldn't continue with her. And the only reason I was awake and to deal with it at this time, it's a 7-hour time difference, is because I was indeed in labor. And so the contractions had started, and Aran sent a message of sorts being like, we need to do this and we need to let her go. And I was like, I can't talk to you because I can't breathe, but I trust you, you do what you need to do. But it was really scary in that moment to understand that there wouldn't be anybody pushing the work forward and building on the foundation that I had built in an area of the company that we felt was so strategic and important. So it was a lot to take in that moment, and made sort of the maternity leave time less productive than it could have been, of course, because there was nobody really focusing on my area.
Sure. No, absolutely. And what an opportunity for learning in that experience too, I imagine. Like, what is this here to teach?
A lot of what not to do. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and I'm sure, it worked out. But that's such the reality of, I can just see you texting, while you're in labor. I don't know if that's what you're doing, but I just imagine, and you're thinking, okay, I've got to have this human, but I also really care about this other baby, which is my amazing career. And yeah. So
which at the time was more tangible to me than my son. It was my first child. So I really, and Aaron said to me also right before I left, like, I don't want to see you in the hospital holding a baby with one hand, your phone in the other. Like, you need to let this go. And I'm like, it's going to be fine. I got this, not understanding, of course, how tremendously my life was going to change. But at the time, yeah, it was more upsetting to me to think about the company not moving forward than how this would affect, me and my soon to be child. So it's crazy to think about now.
I know, right? Amazing. Wow. So, I mean, some of the things that Monday has done and what you've done for the brand, like, can you share a little bit about the New York subway campaign?
So the Monday marketing strategy has always been a really unique part of the company. And for many years, there was no sales team at all. Their primary, our only real acquisition strategy was through performance marketing. So it was ads on Instagram, YouTube, AdWords, Facebook. And what was consistent throughout is we never really marketed ourselves as a B2B. It wasn't like hey, you company, you need this software solution. It was, hey, you human, you're having challenges with your team in communication, collaboration, ownership, whatever it is. And that's how we were able to expand to so many business verticals, is across whatever sort of work you're doing, you have the same qualitative work challenges. It's interacting with other people and figuring out how you drive impact and what your responsibilities are, no matter what you're doing. And the acquisition strategy worked really well. We knew down to a science how much it costed to acquire X customer, when that money would be recycled back into the company, and how we could grow and proceed. And it was a world-class operation. What we didn't build until later on was sort of the more brand marketing and awareness side. And that's where the subway campaigns were sort of our first foray into that. It wasn't a direct sort of measurement of how many customers can we bring in from this, but it was, how do we share our message with the world? How do we reach people in their natural habitats to let them know what Monday is, with the hopes that one day they will use the platform, but not in a direct sort of acquisition strategy. And it was a really exciting thing for us because it was totally new, but we are sort of data and metrics freaks, totally obsessed. And something like brand awareness and sort of the halo effect of a brand isn't measurable in the same way. So it was a very kind of expensive experiment, I would say. And we utilized all of our sort of internal resources and produced it all in-house, which is wild. Our design team created the ads, and we had a data team work on different ways that we could do metrics. And yeah, the first foray into that came to me. It was sort of hey, we want to advertise in the subways. And so I literally found myself Googling like New York City subway ads, and it all grew from there. And we anticipated being in 12 cities around the world this year, but people aren't out and about in the same way. So we repurposed that budget elsewhere, but it remains a huge emphasis of our brand awareness efforts.
So interesting. And like looking at the performance marketing and then kind of shifting over, what are some of the ways that you're able to justify that spend? I mean, other than word of mouth, like that feedback loop, given that halo effect is so tough to measure and understand the effect, like how did you know it was successful?
So there's a few different things that we do, and it came with trial and error, but specifically with the subway campaigns, we sort of built a heat map, a live heat map that you could actually see on screens in the office to measure the before traffic to the Monday website in the tri-state area, for example, and say, okay, what is the traffic that we're seeing now and the engagement, and how do we see it after the campaign? And of course, there's a lot of variables in there, but that was something that we could look for an uptick in. We also, through other brand marketing efforts now, really look at that first touch point. So how many users or prospective users are coming to the website for the very first time, driven by one of these brand marketing things. We don't focus on when and how do they convert, because that's not the emphasis, but how many new people does it touch and sort of pique their interest. And from a media and PR perspective, we really are looking now at share of voice. So measuring on the key topics and thought leadership areas that are important to us, where do we want to be seen and what do we want to be identified with? And how do we measure an improvement in share of voice? Are we being mentioned proactively? Are we being mentioned in the ways that we want? It's not so much quantitative for us, but also a qualitative measurement of quality. We've never been in the numbers game in that way. It's been more making sure the message reflects what we actually want to be said and assessing quality that way.
One of the things I just keep thinking about growth spurts and like growing pains, because you had to have been going through them so quickly. And you alluded to scaling a team. And a lot of people listening, they may have a small team or they're feeling that expansion and just want to, if you're building something, you feel so much ownership and so much, pride in where it's headed, like your baby, but you also obviously have to start letting go of certain responsibilities and delegating. And are there any key things that you learned along the way because you've been a part of a team that's scaled so quickly? Things that you would do differently, or just, some advice for people listening?
Absolutely. So the first thing I would have done is started earlier. And I think that it is a personality trait of mine, but also in a, growing startup, the attitude is always, you can do more and you can do it and you can stretch more and whatever else. But there really are so many benefits to scaling yourself and, finding myself going on maternity leave without anybody to take over the sort of massive amount of work that I was doing was avoidable. And so starting earlier and really understanding who are those strategic personalities that can really help you build, and then trusting those people. And, you have to invest, of course, in the onboarding and making sure it's the right fit, but really taking that leap of faith that you can't always do it the best yourself, and there's so much to gain in really trusting other people and bringing them into the mix. And that's very much the Monday philosophy. We are entirely transparent, as an example, as a culture point. And that means that anybody and everybody has access to every single data point, every dollar that goes into the company and every dollar that goes out. And the mentality there is that you really trust like-minded people to come up with their own ideas and to bring their own initiatives and energy and execution. And I have very much seen the benefits of that now. So I think starting early and really establishing that trust are major lessons. And then sort of looking less traditional backgrounds. My team now, when I look at them, everybody comes from a different perspective. One is a former customer support person who's turned into a communications pro. One comes from a heavy marketing background at one of the big four audit firms. These are not people you would traditionally think would thrive in a growing tech startup environment, but they've brought so much to my world and to our world and to our brand. And so I really am a proponent of looking in those non-traditional places to find the right people.
I love that. So starting earlier and looking in, having some fresh eyes, but obviously they've got that foundation, but starting in those non-traditional verticals or journeys from a career standpoint. And also I just picked up on something you said and it kind of was ringing in my head. Something along the lines of it's not, you shouldn't always assume that that you can do things that you're the most capable or you can do things the best. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like I recently had a conversation with a friend about this and we're like both agreeing, like, who did we think we were that we were the only ones capable to do this one thing? Like, what? Why did we feel that way?
Right. It's hard. It's hard to trust other people and to really embody that sort of delegation. It's a skill you develop.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So kind of transitioning to a little more, I guess, personal, but what's one lesson, Leah, that you find yourself learning over and over again?
Oh my goodness. I think that there are only so many hours in a day. And it was a very tough thing for me to accept because there's so much we can be doing and so much we want to be doing. And for me, especially in personality and in career, I'm not somebody who wakes up in the morning and thinks, this is what I was meant to do with my life. and I fought with our CEO on this endlessly. He always pushes me to say, like, what is it that wakes you up in the morning? What is it that, and I work in communications, I work with media. I'm not thinking all the time, oh, wow, how can we turn this into the best possible story for a journalist, which a lot of people in my space are. For me, it's a lot more about caring about something and then bringing the most amount of impact that I can, wherever that may be. And that's great in that I really love to be involved in different kinds of things, but that's a big challenge when you have specific focus and responsibilities. And so understanding that in a day, there really only is so much time helps me really look at how what I'm doing most drives impact and where my time is best spent. And it also comes back to what we were just saying about thinking that you can always do it the best. Could I review every single thing that my team does and put in the comma and cross the T? Sure, I could. Is that really the best use of my time? Like, no, there are only so many hours in a day, and there's other ways to really be driving impact. And that also really came to reality for me with Eli, with our son. And it used to be that I could work pretty close to 24 hours a day and feel great and everything was fine. And that was my life. And there is something that very much matters more to me now. And so those hours are even further reduced and really force me to be impact driven in the time that I have.
That's so good. And as someone who spent most of last night up with her 22-month-old and then, going and launching into this week, and we were on a team meeting this morning, just a quick stand up. I had to check myself a few times. I'm like, no, don't even bring it up. That's fine. It's good. Good. Done is better than perfect, right? But it is a constant struggle. I know that I have, and I really want to get better about that. I love how you use the word impact. So it's not even so much your clear professional goals or a certain, threshold or whatever milestone. It's driving impact. I love that. Like, where can I be the most effective? Yeah, that's good.
And it can't be everywhere.
Anything is possible. Everything is not, right? Like,
that's great. Yeah.
I need to remind myself on like an hourly basis. So if we look at kind of where you are now and, as you look at the trajectory of your career, where you are, and do you have any why not now moments or why not now ideas? It could be personal, it could be professional, that you've been brewing on, things that you're just kind of flirting with you in the back of your mind.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, certainly the answer is yes. And it's across everywhere. COVID, which it's incredible we've reached this point in the conversation and not even mentioned it, but has brought up a whole lot of questions. Where should we live? And what does that mean for our careers? And what does that mean for our family and all of those things? So we have lived a fairly, I'd say, nomadic lifestyle, 2 years here, 3 years here, 5 years here, and feel that as we grow, want to set down roots somewhere. And so I think that's a big looming question for us of where is that and how does that affect the other pieces? And my husband and I both are very lucky to be so passionate about so many things, about family, about life, about community, and very much so about work. So how do we combine all of those things into a single place? So I think the why not now is why not now settle somewhere? that would be on the personal side. And professionally, it is, kind of the opposite. It's instead of doing so many things, it's really drilling down and focusing in on communications at Monday. How can I build this to be a sustainable and incredibly, impactful, to use the word from before, growth engine for the company? And so that's really my professional focus is cutting away all of the sort of distractions and understanding the core of what I and the team can contribute and really building that out in a sustainable and fast growing way to really match the growth of the company.
I love it. And it's fascinating how I always refer to like work-life integration versus separation, especially it sounds like your world and it in this day and age, especially with COVID, you can't compartmentalize. So it all kind of gets wrapped into one I have a couple of rapid fire questions for you if you're down.
Bring it on. Absolutely.
Okay. I can't believe I didn't ask this sooner, but I am excited to hear. What's your number one productivity tip?
Oh my goodness.
And if you have 4, that's fine. But I want to hear in rank. Like, what is your number one? Have you heard? Oh, I know. I knew that was coming.
I mean, that's what's totally transformed my world, though I'm admittedly the worst Monday, like the least savvy Monday user on the planet. They're always like using me as the lowest common denominator to be like, if you can understand this, then any user can. So honestly, I am really old school with lists and writing it down pen and paper. As much as my world is on Monday, I need to brain dump whatever's going on here so I can focus on the task at hand.
I hear you. Like I always say, don't let anything rent space in your head for free. And if it's up here, I'm stressing that I'm going to forget. But if it's somewhere, that's why I love Monday. It's like, no, we're not going to lose it because it's there. But I might lose it. So I love it. Okay. So pirates or ninjas, Leah, who's tougher and why?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Pirates strike me as scarier. And do I have a good reason for that? Yeah, I think they're just willing to take it to the unknown. And you never really know what's going to happen or where you're going to go. And especially at sea, that seems like a scarier place to be.
I so echo your sentiment. I'm a pirate fan too, or Team Pirates. What's something very interesting that you've read lately? I mean, it doesn't have to be a book. It can be an article. Does anything pop to mind when you think, what caught my eye?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a New York Times piece that still sort of gives me a feeling in my stomach on motherhood in the pandemic. And while we have been incredibly fortunate to both remain working and have the childcare that we need, understanding and reading and experiencing the plight of others who didn't touched me and affected me in a way that I haven't been able to shake off in weeks. And it's just such an incredibly tough situation for the whole world. And I can't think of something in my lifetime that has been that way, where it's just been hard for everybody. And, new mothers especially is something that I identify with. And that's an article that has really irked me.
Yeah, I know exactly the article you're talking about, and very, very powerful. And I hear you. Okay, so final question here. If we were to go back to, you've just gotten to Tel Aviv, well, you've started to put yourself out there in terms of opportunities, and you've got these 3 different paths, and you're sitting there one day looking and analyzing the 3 of them between the big, I think you said it was a public company, but the more safe route. You've got the less demanding, the pipe dream of the TV journalism, and then this startup. What would you say to yourself in that moment if you could go back?
I would say nothing is final. It felt like in that moment that I was making a decision for the rest of my life. And while the trajectory certainly did affect my life in every possible way, it was, if I want to go into news journalism tomorrow, I can try that. And if you want to go to a bigger company next week, that's fine too. It felt like the decision at that time was the be all end all, and this was it. And I would eliminate that pressure and emotion for myself and just say, try it out and see. And, you can change if you need to. It didn't feel like that at the time. And I would also say, strap on, you're really in for a ride that I couldn't have possibly imagined. Like, just to know 4 years later, 5 years later, what it would look like is, beyond my wildest dreams and imagination. And I am just so grateful for the experience and the journey and everything that's come from it.
Oh, and that's a great point too, because we just don't know how something's going to turn out. Like, a lot of my mentors have said along the way, just get started, because 99% of the time it's going to change so much that you can, right? So just get going. Anyway, thank you so much, Leah, for being here with us and sharing wisdom and sharing your time. I've learned so much. I've got lots of notes here.
It's a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hey everyone. Thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now?